What is good, everybody? It's Kobe. It's been a minute since I made a video of this fashion, but I'm back again. Finally getting on the defense video that I promised a year ago. I've just been extremely fucking busy. Finally had some time set aside to get into it a little bit. Just like last one, not going to be super heavily edited. I just have a decent amount of talking points that I want to go over. I have more of a script this time that I just want to read through and probably throw in some clips to make better, but try to keep things a little bit shorter than last time. We'll see if that ends up happening though. I'll go ahead and get started. General defensive mentality in BlazBlue Central Fiction. So BlazBlue defense, and really like as a fighting game at its core, it's categorized by two major things. The first one is BlazBlue heavily rewards patience and wait-and-see approaches to gameplay, and just general, just slow play, and like not committing to actions, chilling out. And then the second thing, it does a lot to dissuade you from guessing and flailing. So like, BlazBlue is not a game that you play to be like a hard reads player. You can succeed that way if you're just extremely good, but like that is the harder path to walk than playing the game than it isn't intended to be played. It's not Guilty Gear, it's not Skullgirls, it's not Marvels, etc. So the big fundamental mentality that you should have for your defense is that blocking is not losing. That idea should be the basis behind a large majority of your decision making in the video game. It's still a fighting game, so active defensive options will like always play a major role. But it's good to internalize that blocking in BlazBlue isn't the end of the world, and you shouldn't structure your play around not getting put into disadvantage, and you absolutely shouldn't play defense with the mentality of getting out of the disfavored situation as soon as possible at all costs. Doing either of these two things will fuck you over as a player in the long run. Even in the short run, they're just bad things in the context of this video game. Second talking point for me is confidence. As goofy as it sounds, confidence is king when it comes to defense and fighting games. If you're shaky or scared that your opponent will just kill you. So when you do things, you need to do them with no fear and no hesitation. Just believe in your own ability to react to scenarios and believe in your reads. If you're unsure of going for like super risky things in a moment, then just don't go for them. You only do things half-assed if you're in situations where like you just can't deal with it in any other capacity, and even then you really don't want to do so. Doing things half-assed and guessing out of fear will just kill you outright 95% of the time. Like squirming and slamming options at random to escape situations unless you're truly fucked, and even then it's bad, is just not strong and not how you should play this game, and will not help you in the long run at all. Alright. This is going to be a big topic. So, reactability as an idea. I'm going to directly plagiarize SKD a little bit here, but he said it was fine. Let me flash that shit on the screen right now. He said it was fine. I got permission, so I'm gonna fucking steal this book that he wrote in some random YouTube comment from like 3 years ago that has like 2 likes. Alright. So, reactability is an idea. Timing variance is the biggest enemy of speed.
Been too far?
I was gonna say, wait, I haven't seen the rapid on that yet. It seems like you finally do.
A lot of the Hell's Fang to be plus here. Cancel. Oh my.
Oh!
What?
In anime games, a lot of the time, more guaranteed mix-up situations where you're particularly forced to block, so like projectile Oki and puppet stuff, tend to end up having very decisive points, which have to differentiate something. You can't really vary the mix-up timing as much as you want. You can see this in like air dash high-low, air dash being juxtaposed versus the low can only really come at one specific time. This is like the biggest deciding factor in speed being feasible or not. A good example is SJC. So a rising overhead that's only comboable at specific times with the JD setup makes it something that you can anticipate. When she has 50 meter, it's a bit of a different discussion, but she still only has certain jump cancel options. And if she does it raw, she's like doing it in a very awkward situation, which will lose outright to other things, such as like fuzzy jump or just mashing or whatever if she just does that shit on minus frames to try to throw you off. As someone who has experienced Jin 6A, his words not mine, directly quoting, one of the biggest strengths of Jin 6A is not only the animation, there's also the chance that the move will be performed with zero sound clip, which helps a lot, but also the potential to vary its timing super heavily. You can delay cancel into it, meaning if the opponent is even checking for 6A at the end of your 2A recovery window, they can just delay it. And it makes throwing a bunch of options together, such as throw, delay, jump cancel, redash, etc., all way harder to deal with because it's particularly demanding to check for those things while also checking for that overhead over and over and over again. This is why defensive button pressing / jumping is generally something pretty good in conjunction with this. You can actively limit, or at least try to limit, how much variance your opponent can throw at you on offense. This has caveats, of course. Taking advantage of a delay attempting to mess with your strong parsing of a situation comes with caveats, but it is a welcome improvement over, let me just hold this 50-50, that also has a canned high reward frame trap option built into the situation. There's a lot to speak on for context like that. How many things you're looking for, at what speed, etc. That end up influencing the kind of iron wall success rate. In BlazBlue's case, it's you have to tech the throw at the right time, but generally standing overheads average at like 22 to 24 frames. So you don't really need to be looking at anything else except them redashing and standing in your face, which could be really risky on their end, and isn't really a big risk if you have no reason to be afraid of it. That did start with practicing super variable timings in training mode. But for matches, it's definitely something you have to be really in shape for. I mean, being able to perform and wager this kind of thing is such a big part of the skill proof of fighting games. People usually throw around the term, like, quote-unquote mental stack, and it's clearly a skill that scales up to top level. Obviously, there's a cutoff for where the top players are with pushing the envelope on this kind of thing. At the end of the day, it's fine to consider something reactable, but still very stable. Like the examples mentioned, Jin's mix-up situations, S's mix-up capabilities. To some varying degree, Izio's Gaynard's pressure, according to this shit, I guess. At one end of the speed spectrum, I feel like it's kind of besides the point to try to designate these things as reactable or not, when realistically, people can feasibly respond to a ton of things omega consistently in matches. What doesn't change is the relative difficulty of doing so. Like how many variables of what speed stuff are going on in a situation that quote-unquote need to be considered. Contextual reaction difficulty is an important factor to consider, and putting excessive strain on your opponent can crack them, or let you get on them in neutral. How much excessive strain ends up being will vary throughout the world of players you play against. Whether your character can accomplish that or not is another thing entirely. Characters without consistent offense aren't unplayable because of the idea that reactability is cut off at some arbitrary number for all players universally. Like, for example, is Ragnar mix-up fake? By general convention, yeah. I mean, it changes if they can react to IAD, DP, or throw well too. It's fake if you try to think of it like, this is my high-low, instead of, okay, I can use the onus of reaction to sustain my pressure and chip damage, because he's trying to sit there and block to see it. Like, a character like Naoto has dog shit, terrible mix-ups, but he has great pressure. It's really hard to escape, catches fuzzy jumps and defensive options really, really well. And weaving the fucking terrible dog shit mix-ups into said amazing pressure makes it work better than it would if it was all he had to stand on. A lot of people have this, like, pseudo-boner for dropping these things into a binary when try to see it as every single game is built on quote-unquote reactable neutral and quote-unquote reactable offense. No one ever talks about how reactable the neutral approach was. It's very fortunate when you get on somebody sometimes. There's honestly very little guaranteed, and a lot less stability to things than people would like to think. Very commonly in high-level sets, the deciding factor becomes who gets worn down and can't keep up, / who makes mistakes first, rather than the checkmate-esque result that people like to imagine. Fortitude is absurdly important in fighting games, and that isn't something that changes from mid-level play. How good you are at both winning and not losing are both very important. Like, on the Jin thing, if your success rate on blocking is higher than 50%, you're likely better off sitting there and waiting for it and committing to barrier for if he performs something else that can be taken advantage of for a better situation. Extending blocks on with frame traps, going low, throw, etc. Whether you can consistently do so, where you allocate your focus, and considering how that can be exploited, are all things you have to consider. Like, after playing in a tournament all day, you might legit make the choice, I'm tired, I don't think I can successfully sustain the kind of defense that I think is best in this situation, so reversal or mash or backdash or try to fuzzy jump more often here than I normally would. And that would be overall more considerate of the real world that the game is being played in. Making a different choice there likely would be a better overall application that would fit that situation. Like, another very similar concept, kind of on the other side of the coin, is going for mix-ups because you smell blood. This goes back to the confidence thing I was talking about earlier. In Fear, and how you'll get shit on against very strong players if you don't have, like, full confidence in your actions. Next part. Unfortunately, this is fighting games. Even at high-level play, you rarely see somebody able to perform the best option at all times. Except me, of course. You would probably be pretty surprised at how strongly people can respond to certain things. I'm of the camp that I don't like it when people pose that X is unreactable, because it paints a very incomplete picture and has shown to run into scaling issues as the level of play exponentially goes higher. Dragon Rush is a great example. This has also happened with characters like Relius, where a lot of early foundation was built on a mix-up structure, air dash high-low, that didn't really pan out very well in the grand scheme of things for the full future of the video game. Alright, that sums up me paraphrasing and quoting SKD's little write-up that he did a couple years ago. I guess I'll share a few of my ideas just on some basic defensive concepts, and then I do want to get into how you should figure out how to study characters' offensive structures and formulate strong game plans and defensive ideas versus specific characters with the tools you have at your disposal, such as Dust Loop in the Improvement mod, and just figuring out how your character can interact with another character's kit. I'll go straight into the meat of things. Passive defense in BlazBlue is relatively straightforward. Passive defense in this game is strong because extending pressure is relatively difficult with how powerful instant barrier is as a mechanic. So just passive defense in this game is literally just hold down back, you IB and IBB appropriately, and you block mix-ups and tech throws, and that's kind of it. And you have to sprinkle in a lot of active defense in this game, such as fuzzy jump and like mashing and stuff as you go on, but the base layer that is passive defense is incredibly strong in BlazBlue because chip is negligible, playing for time is very viable, and you have a lot of checkmates from a defensive situation, such as reactive overdrive to mix-up attempts. And also just a lot of the time you get punishes in situations where your opponent tries to overextend their pressure, tries to commit too hard to mix-ups. Like, for example, a string like this. That's just a true punish. You IB the Gen 6A, you weather the storm, you get a punish, you take your turn, they can't really do anything about it. Yeah, passive defense in this game it's difficult because mental stack is high, mix-ups are relatively fast. You need to be really strong defensively to just hold down back and wall someone out, but it is very powerful. Here I'll get into active defense though. So I'll start with low commitment active defense. Low commitment active defense in BlazBlue is basically just IBB and IB fuzzy jump and overdrive. So these two things are very, very low risk. I mean, overdrive is quite literally zero risk in the concept of you can't just get hit for popping overdrive incorrectly. You can lose in resource economy, but like that's extremely low risk considering most games you would just have to fucking mash and live and die by that extremely hard read. And fuzzy jump is also super, super low risk in BlazBlue. Fighting fuzzy jump it's very possible, don't get me wrong. Offense in this game is like very much structured around catching fuzzy jump, but fuzzy jump is jump startup is 4 frames. It's relatively difficult to get, as fuzzy jump, like properly rotated and timed fuzzy jumps are very hard to catch because if you're fuzzy jumping well, you're not just holding up if someone is pressuring you. Like, I'm just gonna get shit on if I just try to fuzzy jump like that. However, fuzzy jumping properly in situations where your opponent's options to catch your fuzzy jump are either non-existent or very, very risky is what makes it super strong. So like here, I IBB Jin out twice. What do you have to do to catch my fuzzy jump in that situation? 2B wouldn't reach. You would literally have to do 3C, or you'd have to 5C. But 5C with any amount of delay, I'll just block in the air and IBB it. So we'd have to instant cancel into 5C, which would be pretty weird. It wouldn't be something that's like super, super standard for Jin to do at that range. It's like fuzzy jumping there is super strong. Fuzzy jumping there was good because I didn't just IB to 2B and jump instantly. I IB to 2B and then I fuzzy jumped. Meaning I didn't just hold the up button. I like waited 5 frames, 5-6 frames, noticed that nothing was happening, and then did my input and went up. If he did like 2B 3C there, I would have just blocked low because I didn't press up at a timing that would have shit on me. He would have had to very, very intentionally do like a super, super late delay to catch me there, or do like 2B 5A to try to hit me in the air, which I would just air IB anyways and probably get out of the situation. This is the classic. It was like 0 risk to do this. If I was wrong, then I still would be at no risk. Even if I was wrong on the mix-up attempt and he did 3C, it would still be a punish. If he did like 5C, it would most likely still be a punish as an ODR. Even if he hard calls me and does literally nothing, you're in an RPS situation at worst. You can use it in an RPS situation because you have the option to do EA, and you have the option to DPRC if your character allows it, etc, etc. Or pick whatever defensive options your character has, but really, you're just still on defense. So like, you don't have to do anything. It comes back to the beginning focal point of blocking is not losing. So you go, damn, I used my overdrive. It didn't really pan out, so I'll do it like this. I mean, I got hit by the overhead there because I suck, but the general idea is you can still just block. Like, nothing's stopping you after that point of your overdrive not working from you just continuing to block and not taking any risks still. Getting into active defense or high risk active defense is kind of where things become hard, because active defense in this game is very, very tricky. Active defense in BlazBlue, pressure is very much, it's very easy to structure pressure in a way that just absolutely obliterates mashing and just like defensive concepts in general that aren't safe. So, well, IBDP is strong and IB reversal is strong, especially in situations where you can create gaps and stuff in opponent's pressure. That's kind of different, but just hard mashing is like, you just gotta be right. You just have to live and die by your read and just fucking be right on mashing. Though a really strong thing to keep in mind about active defense in BlazBlue is, one, microdashes are 0 frames, so if you ever mash, you don't just want to fucking mash your brains out, you want to microdash mash 100 times out of 100. There is no reason to ever not microdash mash. It will come out on the exact same frame, and it'll literally just prevent you from having this happen to you. Let me... There. Okay, fuck off, Jin. It'll prevent that from happening to you, whereas if I do this, and I do microdash mash, exactly the same thing happens. Or everything happens at exactly the same speed, except I actually connect with my opponent and things work out. Another big concept that's really hard to grasp in BlazBlue is that... Let me pick Ragna for this, it'll make things a little easier. There are a lot of characters in this game who will pressure you in ways that you can't just fucking mash your jab buttons. In BlazBlue, you have to mash with bigger buttons and kind of commit to just higher risk situations, just like to get out of pressure sometimes if you really want to mash. So, as for the example, let me do this actually. It's a good one. See, I tried to mash 5A there. 5A gets cooked. Okay, what if I... Okay, no. That works, but what if I... Fuck. See there? And there are a lot of situations like that where even your microdash mash won't have enough range to contest your opponent. So, in many scenarios versus characters with solid range, like Ragnar and Susan are like the two go-tos to make examples of these for, is oftentimes you have to do microdash B button or microdash C button and just stand by your read and commit to it. Yeah, so that's super important to internalize for range pressure structuring. And it's kind of scary because the button is a lot slower, but you kind of just have to think, in the context of the situation, my jab's not going to work. And even outside of the context of the situation, if their frame data was bad, mashing a B normal would be better because it would work in the same capacity, or like in the same situations that mashing an A normal would work. But generally characters have good frame data up close, and if you mash a B button up close, them doing like a -1 or 2 on block move and then doing a jab will beat you outright. So that's not the case once they get further out. So you want to maximize your risk reward and just like pick the big reward option that doesn't have that much more risk than a jab when applicable. This situation is a little bit extreme because jab just straight up won't work, but like there are a lot of cases where frame data on a character is poor and you can just mash with B normals anyways and kind of just take that situation and try to get your 4K off of a counter hit B normal rather than like 2.53K off a jab. That's pretty much it for the basic, super basic defensive shit. I'll now go into like really specific defensive applications versus characters. Alright. Final segment is probably going to be one of the more important ones. It's going to be character-specific defensive applications. So the question I always hear is, how do I play defense versus X character? Which is an okay question, but the better question that you truly want to ask is, how do I effectively learn how to study any character's offensive capabilities and take what I find to make a cohesive defensive idea versus this character, and formulate strategies and checkmates versus their offense. This can be simple or slightly complex, kind of depending on, well, character complexity, but I'll try to break it down on how I try to formulate this kind of thing in my brain. So, when I'm struggling defensively versus a character, I don't learn them per se, but I open Dust Loop, I look at all their frame data, I look through what their Gatling tree is, I look through their basic pressure structure, and I watch like high-level players of the characters play the characters, and like get a good feel for how they structure their pressure. And then I go, okay, what are my options to beat this? What kind of things did they do? And what kind of things can I do to checkmate these things? So like, a good example would be S, which you see her frame data right here. S's frame data, apart from her jabs, is pretty shit. So, oh, I fucked it up. Whoops. She got hit crouching there, which tells you that she got true punished by my micro dash 5B. This is like one example out of many, but like, you see here with this that S, like a lot of characters, if they hard commit, they can get punished. Like if they do whiff button into another button, or try to do like button, wait, button on their offense at like decent spacings, will get shit on. But S is an example, or S is an exception to the fact that she will get true punished if she tries to do range staggers and you have the read on her. So, like, ranged mash versus S is very, very strong. And that's like something you should internalize and like implement into your game plan against this character. Stuff like fighting S and internalizing that into your game plan and doing it consistently and being like, okay, overdrive is very strong in the situation where she tries to reset her own offense with drives, and basically playing around that is super, super good. You kind of just take this across the entire cast and look at things that they do and kind of just try to blow them up. It's kind of a weird thing to talk about because it varies so much character to character with how much offense varies in this game, but like for some characters it's just small ideas, and then some characters it is like really, really big groundbreaking shit, which I will plug on the screen real quick just to show you guys. Some shit versus Valk that's extremely strong and can be abused versus pressure structure. But yeah, the general idea is literally just study the shit out of the character and how they run their offense, and then I mean, you as a character specialist should know your character like the back of your hand and say, okay, these are their strengths and weaknesses, and the strengths and weaknesses of their pressure. What are my character's defensive strengths and defensive capabilities? What can I use here? What can I use there? What can I plug into situations, and what can I make fit to fight this character? And then it doesn't have to be just be character specific stuff. It can absolutely just be universal things like, oh, this character has to gamble and like fight fuzzy jump really, really hard in XY situation, so I'm going to leverage fuzzy jump a lot in this situation. Or this character is really weak to IBDP in like these situations, so I'm going to leverage that consistently in these situations. Just stuff like that. Just learn matchups. It really just boils down to just learn matchups. Study up. Fucking hit the lab. Open Dust Loop. Download improvement mod. Just figure shit out. It really does boil down to just studying up on what characters can do and looking at it objectively and plugging in what your character can do against them. And this kind of stuff can also work for neutral concepts too. So this video isn't really going to be much about neutral, but I figure I'll just go into this real quick. Like a good example is Carl. Or I guess a decent example would be Carl is like, he can't really jail you to the ground very well without Ada near him. So Let me do this. That should work. So like, Carl is pretty shit at jailing you all the way to the ground. So like, you take that paired with if Ada is far, he can't really contest airspace well. Well, his J is broken, so he still can, but like, you take him not being able to jail air to ground well, paired with if Doll is far away, then he can't really capitalize on situations that he makes you block in the air, and sometimes can't even really capitalize on like air knockdowns to a great extent. You take that information, you go, okay, if Doll is far away, then challenging Carl in the air has pretty decent risk reward, and it's not really a bad idea for me as my character, especially at like super high heights where he just has no chance of jailing me to the ground at all. Like, that would be a matchup specific neutral concept that you kind of just like look at and break down and be like, okay, because X, Y, and Z factors, my character can do this. But yeah, kind of just comes down to that for character specific stuff. This video is a little bit all over the place, but at the same time, whereas offense is a science, defense is a lot more of like, defense is not a science. Like, if offense is sci-fi, then defense is like fantasy. Like, the shit that happens on defense is a lot of confidence in yourself, just blocking properly, having good reads, and just being able to react to situations well. It's not as much of a cut and dry thing as offense is, even though offense isn't cut and dry, but it's a little bit more so than defense is. There are obviously still checkmates, like I just described shit, versus like S, or the Valk thing that I showed is like a really big one. That's something that you can leverage, but like, generally defense is a lot about your intuition as a fighting game player. You kind of just have to internalize and think on that a lot. But I'll make my ending points. Reaction training is very strong. You should do it. It'll be super helpful in the long run for this video game. Just block a lot. Do not flail and shit. Just fucking have confidence in your ability to block and force yourself to block. That is the only way your defense will grow. And that's pretty much it. Just block and practice how to block, and you will get better defensively. I'll go ahead and dip for the time being. I kind of want to make more videos, but this one was a little all over the place, like I said, and I don't have a topic that I really want to get into next. If I make another video anytime soon, it will probably literally just be like an extended bang guide, because I feel like the old one that I made is serviceable, but as far as high level play goes, kind of whatever. So I'll catch y'all later. Peace.